Breaking the Silence, the urgent call to end gun violence in black communities. Welcome to a crucial conversation that demands our attention, our hearts, and our action. Today, we're diving deep into an issue that's tearing apart families, shattering dreams, and leaving an indelible mark on our communities. I'm honored to share with you the powerful insights and heart-wrenching experiences of Cheryl Sumler, a woman whose courage and resilience in the face of unimaginable tragedy have become a beacon of hope and a call to action for us all. Cheryl Sumler is not just a grieving grandmother, she's a warrior for change, a voice for the voiceless, and a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Her story, her pain, and her unwavering determination to create a safer world for our children have the power to shake us to our core and inspire a movement that can no longer be ignored. Imagine for a moment the joy and anticipation of a family preparing to celebrate a milestone, high school graduation. The air is filled with excitement, dreams of the future, and the pride of accomplishment. Now, picture that joy shattered in an instant by the sound of gunfire. This is the reality Cheryl Sumler faced when her twin granddaughter was tragically taken from this world just 10 days before she was set to walk across that graduation stage. The silence that followed was deafening, not just in Cheryl's home, but in our communities, our media, and our collective consciousness. And it's this silence that we're here to break today. Silence in our black communities on gun violence means acceptance in your community. These words spoken by Cheryl should ring in our ears and stir our souls. They challenge us to confront an uncomfortable truth. Our silence is not neutral. It's not protective. Our silence is a form of complicity that allows this cycle of violence to continue unchecked. But why? Why do we remain silent in the face of such devastating loss? Why do we scroll past news stories of yet another shooting without pausing? Why do we shrug our shoulders and mutter, that's just how it is? The reasons are complex and deeply rooted. Perhaps it's a misguided attempt at self-preservation. If we don't talk about it, maybe we can pretend it's not real. Maybe we can shield ourselves from the pain, the fear, the overwhelming sense of helplessness that comes with acknowledging this epidemic of violence, or maybe it's a misplaced sense of loyalty to our communities. We don't want to air our dirty laundry. We fear giving ammunition to those who already stereotype and discriminate against us. We think that by keeping quiet, we're somehow protecting our own. But here's the harsh, undeniable truth. Our silence isn't protecting anyone. It's not keeping our children safe. It's not preventing the next shooting. It's not healing the wounds of those left behind. Our silence is a tacit agreement with the status quo, an unspoken acceptance that this is just how things are. And that, my friends, is something we can no longer afford. Let's pause for a moment and truly absorb the weight of what we're discussing. Every day, precious lives are being cut short. Young people with dreams, with potential, with futures stretching out before them, all extinguished in an instant. And it's not just the victims we're losing families too. Families left behind in a whirlwind of grief, depression, and anger. Families like Cheryl's who have to somehow find a way to keep living when a piece of their heart has been violently torn away. I want you to imagine what it must have been like for Cheryl and her family. Picture that home filled with excitement, with two young people on the brink of a major milestone, high school graduation. There are caps and gowns hanging somewhere waiting to be worn, college acceptance letters pinned to a bulletin board, brochures scattered on a kitchen table. There's anticipation in the air, plans being made, dreams being shared, and then in a heartbeat, it all changes. One twin will walk across that stage, the other never will. One family's celebration becomes another family's deepest nightmare. Can you feel the weight of that loss? Can you imagine the void left behind? This is the reality we're facing. This is what our silence is allowing to continue. But it doesn't have to be this way. We have the power to change this narrative. We have the strength to break this silence. And it starts with acknowledging the truth of our situation and committing ourselves to action. We need to start talking. We need to start shouting if that's what it takes. We need to make it clear in no uncertain terms that we do not accept this violence as our norm. That we refuse to let another generation grow up thinking that drive-by shootings are just a part of life in their neighborhood. But talking is just the beginning. We need action too. We need to come together as communities to address the root causes of this violence. We need to create opportunities for our young people to show them that there are alternatives to the street life. We need to invest in mental health resources, in conflict resolution programs, in after school activities that keep our kids engaged and off the streets. We need to work with law enforcement to build trust and cooperation, to ensure that when violence does occur, it's swiftly and justly dealt with. We need to pressure our elected officials to pass sensible gun laws and to fund programs that address the socioeconomic factors that contribute to violence. And perhaps most importantly, we need to support each other. We need to be there for families like Cheryl's who are grappling with unimaginable loss. We need to create spaces where people can share their pain, their fears, their anger, because it's in sharing these emotions that we begin to heal, and it's in healing that we find the strength to fight for change. I know this isn't easy. I know it's scary to speak up, to challenge the status quo, to demand better for ourselves and our communities, but I also know that we are strong. We are resilient. We have faced seemingly insurmountable challenges before, and we have overcome them. Think about the civil rights movement. Think about the countless brave men and women who stood up, who spoke out, who marched and protested and risked everything for the belief that we deserve better. They didn't stay silent in the face of injustice. They raised their voices even when it was dangerous to do so. And because of their courage, because of their refusal to accept the unacceptable, they changed the world. We can do the same. We must do the same. Because every life lost to gun violence is a tragedy. Every family torn apart by senseless killing is a wound on our community. Every silent acceptance of this violence as normal is a betrayal of our potential, of our worth, of our humanity. Cheryl Sumler's story is heartbreaking. But in her pain, in her willingness to speak out, there is also hope. Because by sharing her story, by refusing to be silent, she's showing us the way forward. She's challenging us to do better, to be better, to demand better. So I ask you today, will you join her? Will you join me? Will you break the silence? It starts with small steps. Talk to your family about gun violence. Reach out to your neighbors, your church, your community organizations. Ask what's being done to address this issue, and if the answer is not enough, ask how you can help change that. Share stories like Cheryl's, not to spread fear, but to spread awareness, to remind people that behind every statistic, every headline about another shooting, there's a real person, a real family, real pain. Get involved in local initiatives aimed at reducing violence. Volunteer your time, your skills, your resources. If there aren't any initiatives in your area, consider starting one. Educate yourself about the factors contributing to gun violence in our communities. The more we understand the problem, the better equipped we'll be to solve it. And perhaps most importantly, commit to not being silent. Commit to speaking up, to calling out the acceptance of violence as normal, to demanding better for our communities. Because here's the thing, change doesn't happen in silence. Progress doesn't come from acceptance. It comes from people who are willing to stand up, to speak out, to fight for what's right even when it's hard, even when it's scary, even when it feels like no one is listening. I believe in us. I believe in our strength, our resilience, our capacity for change. I believe that we can create communities where our children can grow up without the constant threat of gun violence, where families don't have to live in fear, where graduation parties don't turn into funerals. But it starts with breaking the silence. It starts with each one of us deciding that we will no longer accept this as our reality, that we will no longer let our silence be mistaken for acceptance. And so I challenge you today, break the silence, speak up, act, because our lives, our children's lives, our community's future, they're all worth fighting for. And to Cheryl Sumler and to every family who has lost someone to gun violence, we hear you. We see you. Your pain matters. Your loss matters. And we will not let your stories be forgotten. We will not let your loved ones have died in vain. We will use your pain, your courage, your willingness to speak out as fuel for change, because silence in our Black communities on gun violence does mean acceptance. And we do not accept this. We will not accept this, not anymore. As we come to the end of this talk, I want to leave you with a call to action that goes beyond just breaking the silence. It's a call to reimagine our communities, to redefine what safety means, and to reclaim our right to live without fear. Imagine a world where our children can play outside without the constant threat of gunfire, where our schools are sanctuaries of learning, not fortresses against violence, where our streets are filled with the sounds of laughter and music, not sirens in mourning. This world is possible, but it requires more than just our voices. It requires our hands, our hearts, and our unwavering commitment to change. So here's what I'm asking of you. First, commit to having at least one conversation about gun violence in your community this week. It could be with your family at the dinner table, with your colleagues at work, or with your neighbors at a community gathering. Share what you've learned today. Share Cheryl's story. Make it personal. Make it real. Second, identify one local organization working to reduce gun violence in your area and reach out to them. Ask how you can help, whether it's through volunteering, donating, or simply spreading the word about their work. Every bit of support counts. Third, educate yourself about the policies and laws that impact gun violence in your community. Knowledge is power. Understanding the legal landscape is the first step towards advocating for meaningful change. Fourth, use your social media platforms to amplify voices like Cheryl's. Share stories of both tragedy and hope. Help create a digital movement that can't be ignored. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, commit to long-term action. This isn't a problem that will be solved overnight. It requires sustained effort, unwavering dedication, and a refusal to return to silence, no matter how difficult the conversation becomes. Remember, every time you speak up, you're not just breaking the silence, you're breaking the cycle of violence, you're breaking the chains of fear that have held our communities captive for too long. You're breaking ground for a new future, one where our children can thrive, not just survive. We are standing at a crossroads. Down one path lies more of the same, more violence, more loss, more silent suffering. But down the other path lies hope. It's a path that won't be easy to walk. It will be fraught with challenges, with setbacks, with moments where it feels like we're not making any progress at all. But it's a path worth taking, because at the end of that path is a community transformed, a community where gun violence is a relic of the past, not a daily reality. A community where every child can dream big, knowing they have the chance to grow up and realize those dreams. That's the future we're fighting for. That's the future Cheryl Sumler is fighting for. That's the future every victim of gun violence deserves. So let's leave here today, not just with broken silence, but with a roar of determination. Let's leave here not just with awareness, but with a plan of action. Let's leave here not just with hope, but with the unshakable conviction that change is not just possible, it's inevitable. If we have the courage to demand it, to work for it, to never stop fighting for it. The time for silence is over. The time for action is now. Our lives, our children's lives, our community's future, they're all hanging in the balance. And we have the power to tip that balance towards justice, towards peace, towards a future free from the scourge of gun violence. Are you ready to break the silence? Are you ready to be the change? Are you ready to reclaim our communities, our streets, our future? The choice is yours. The power is yours. The future is yours. Let's make it a future we can all be proud of. A future where silence in the face of violence is unthinkable. A future where every life is valued, every voice is heard, and every community is safe. Together, we can make that future a reality. Together, we will break the silence. Together, we will end gun violence in our communities. The time is now. The movement starts here with you, with me, with all of us. Let's get to work